Hari Hari. So we're in chapter 4, text 13. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So I'm going to spend hopefully no more than 2 videos on Varnasrama. Very important, very, very important for us. But we're not going to take a deep dive into Varnasrama because, number one, I'm not a Varnasrama scholar, and to take such a deep dive into Varnasrama, books would be required. An easy concept to take from this verse is Krishna saying, the Varnasrama system comes from me, however, I am aloof, I'm above it, I'm not under the control or sway or the purview of Varnasrama. That's an easy concept to understand. You and I, however, we are under the purview and influence of Varnasrama, and we should take advantage of the Varnasrama system to elevate ourselves to pure devotion to the Lord. So that's where we're going to go into Varnasrama. Oftentimes, Varnasrama is described as being the caste system. It is not. Let's be very clear on that. And we should not allow that phrase to go by unchallenged. Sometimes you hear, oh, Varna. The word Varna means color. Literally, it does. So the Varnasrama system was based on skin color or ethnicity. Could not be further from the truth. We're going to talk about that briefly. In the Shruti Shastras, the Rig Veda, the other Vedas, Varna is not talked about. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, those are talked about, absolutely, throughout the Shruti Shastras, but not Varna, or Varnasrama in that sense. It describes the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas as limbs of the universal being. Described as how, or what some of the Brahmins did, what Vaishyas do, what Kshatriyas do, what Shudras do, certainly. But it doesn't talk about a system of social order, Varnasrama in those terms. Varnasrama is talked about as Varna, as we understand it in that Sanskrit text, or that Sanskrit word, comes in the Smriti Shastras, the Puranas, Manusmriti, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and so on. That's where we hear the word Varna mentioned quite often. However, even in the Smriti Shastras, Varna is primarily and most often talked about in terms of behavioral qualities, not genealogical, not hereditary, not the caste system. It is talked about as a behavioral method of society being organized. Always, even throughout the Smriti Shastras. Now, there are incidences throughout the Smriti Shastras where individuals described or gave credence to the genealogical understanding of Varna. For example, Draupadi did not want to marry Karna. So there was an objection. I'm not going to get into the details of that story. There was an objection that Karna was not born a Kshatriya because no one knew Karna's background, right? The fact that his mother is Kunti and his father is a sun god, no one knows this. That is still a closely guarded secret. So in that instance, we see Varna being described as something that is hereditary, genealogical. So you see incidences like that throughout the Smriti Shastras. You see even in the Manusmriti incidences or texts where it's talked about in a genealogical light. But even given those incidences, overall, even in the Smriti Shastras, Varnasrama and Varna is talked about in a behavioral sense. Right here in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhagavad Gita is technically a Smriti Shastra, right? It comes in the Mahabharata. Right here, Guna Karma, behavioral. The Varnasrama system, the Varnas are talked about in a behavioral sense. in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we see again Krishna's talking about Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra in a behavioral sense. The Brahmins do this, the Kshatriyas do that, the Vaishyas do this, and the Shudras do that. Not in terms of genealogical or ethnical or pigmentation of a person's skin. It's not there. Those incidences where Varnashram is talked about in a genealogical sense are actually few and far between, even in the Smriti Shastras. It's nowhere in the Shruti. It's not in the Shruti. In the Smriti, yes, it's there, but even those indicators, even those instances, are few and far between. They are there. But overall, the vast majority and descriptions of Varnashram are in the behavioral sense. Let's go back to the Mahabharata. It was after the Pandavas and the Kauravas graduated from Gurukula, and Dronacharya and the Kaurava elders set up a exhibition where the Pandavas and the Kauravas and all the students of Dronacharya can show off what they've learned in their martial arts Gurukula. And we know Arjuna gave a wonderful exhibition of all of his skills. And then enter Karna. For the first time, no one knows who he is. He enters and he challenges Arjuna. He says, I can do everything you can do and better. I can one up anything that you do. And then there was some, depending on which version of the Mahabharata, some say it was Bhima, some say it was this, doesn't matter. Someone objected, well, who are you? And from the crowd, his father or his foster father who raised him, Adhirat, walks in. Adhirat is a chariot driver. He has the occupation of a Shudra. And he embraces Karna, oh, my son, my son, my son. So then the objection is, oh, this is a Shudra, or the son of a Shudra. How can we possibly have a Shudra match up with a Kshatriya? Arjuna is a Kshatriya. Who made that objection? It's, some say Bhima, some say this one or that. It doesn't matter. But the objection was made. Duryodhana says, that's not a problem. I make him the king of Anga. Right? Anga is a kingdom in Bihar or Bengal, somewhere in that side of India. I make Karna the king of Anga. He's now a Kshatriya. He's equal to Arjuna. No one objected. Because being a Kshatriya is not about genealogical considerations. It's about behavioral. If Karna is being crowned king, he certainly has the bearing of a Kshatriya. He's come to a Kshatriya event to exhibit the skills of a Kshatriya warrior. That is the overarching consideration. So as soon as Duryodhana did that, there was not even from the person who objected initially, there was no objection once that was done. Because it is, the overarching consideration is behavioral. We see again, also involving Karna actually. He wanted to learn the Yuddha Shastras from Dhanurveda, from Parashuram, learn how to fight from Parashuram. What better person from whom to learn, right? And Parashuram has a very... Parashuram's relationship with Kshatriyas is complicated. So Parashuram does not teach Kshatriyas what he knows on the martial arts. So when Karna goes to him and he says, I'd like to learn the martial teachings, Parashuram asks, well, are you a Brahmin? I do not teach Kshatriyas. And Karna says, I am Radheya, I'm the son of Radha. So in that instance, we see that the genealogical concern is what Karna puts forward. I am the son of Radha. His mother, apparently, Parashuram assumed that his mother was a Brahmana by him saying, I am the son of Radheya. So Parashuram just assumed that Karna was a Brahmana. Story goes on. Karna learns everything from Parashuram. One day, they're out in the forest. Parashuram gets tired. He wants to rest. So Karna, his disciple, offers his thigh as a pillow. Lord Parashuram is lying there sleeping. A bug comes, tears open the flesh of Karna on his thigh starts drinking Karna's blood, and the blood is flowing down Karna's leg and onto the face of Parashuram. Karna doesn't want to move. He's biting his tongue, he's bearing the pain because he doesn't want to disturb the slumber of his spiritual master. He doesn't recognize, he doesn't notice that there's blood going down his guru's face. Parashuram wakes up, he's got blood on his face, and he immediately recognizes, he says, "You're not a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya." Behavioral. Parashuram says a Brahmana would never unnecessarily tolerate a bug boring a hole in his or her thigh. You are a Kshatriya. Again, indicating that it's about behavior. It's about one's disposition. So this idea that Varna is genealogical in consideration, or ethnical, or based on skin color, pigmentation, it's simply not the case. And the incidences in the Smriti, not in Shruti, the incidences in the Smriti where individuals have brought it up, oftentimes it's immediately corrected. That's the evidences, if you will, about this. So it's really, really very unfortunate that oftentimes this narrative is pushed that the Varnashram system is the caste system. It is not. It's the furthest thing from the caste system. However, we see the Varnashram system being morphed into what we now know as the caste system during the colonial era. When India was colonized by other nations, it was immediately this terminology of Varnashram was immediately pounced upon and exploited to rule the Indian subcontinent. Otherwise, how is it when we have 500 billion people being ruled by a few thousand? It was done, that manipulation was achievable by dividing the population of India to have them at tension with each other rather than the colonizers. And they began the first translations of Manu Samhita are by the colonizers. That is not by mistake. The first translations of the Manu Samhita, the first translations of the Dharma Shastra were by the colonizers. And immediately these things are seized upon. That there are castes, there's hierarchies, and you're born into them. Now we have an untouchable, and it becomes completely distorted. Whereas in truth, when we see those isolated incidences pop up in the Smriti Shastras, Puranas, and so on, they are corrected. They are addressed at the time. So I've said all that to begin to go into, which we'll talk about tomorrow, the importance of Varnashram. We have to understand our Varna, our ashram, who we are, because that is key in engaging in devotional service. How we engage ourselves in the service of Krishna. Because we are in a process of purification, right? We cannot just pretend like, that's what Arjuna was doing, right? I'm going to go to the forest, I'm not going to engage in this ghastly warfare. Krishna says, you idiot, you're a Kshatriya. You are going to engage in Kshatriya Dharma no matter where you are. And of course, in the Mahabharata, we see this. I mean, the Pandavas were already banished for 13 years. They spent all their time fighting demons, engaging in Kshatriya Dharma. So we have to understand the importance of us understanding our Varnashram, where who we are in terms of Varnashram. Varnashram is just a word. Who we are, our being, our nature. We can then engage our nature properly in Krishna service. Otherwise, what will happen is others will engage us in Krishna service contrary to our nature, and then what happens? Aparad, Vaishnava aparad, Seva aparad, Nam aparad. That is why Varnashram is absolutely key. Once we are Paramahamsas, we don't need Varnashram. But until we are Paramahamsas and we rise above, we are essentially, qualitatively, one with Krishna, in that we are not influenced by the modes of material nature, then okay, Varnashram, throw it out the window. But until that time, if we are not engaged according to our Varna in Krishna's service, then Namaparad, Dhammaparad, Sevaparad, and Vaishnava aparad are going to happen inevitably because we are not properly situated. So I'll end there. Hari Hari.